Hey guys, it's John. In this video, I want to break down how you're going to become your own market of one. You're going to cover 3 psychological principles and exercises that you can implement straight away to improve your understanding of who you serve. This is going to increase the volume of people coming off your content. So it's going to attract more leads off the back of your content into your inquiry form, but also it's going to improve your ability to help those people and create better results on the inside of service. This will enable you to vastly outcompete your competitors who have more followers than you, who are way more established, because when you understand and speak someone's reality back to them, you're going to attract that attention. And when you have the specificity of knowing what problems you're going to talk about and knowing how to talk about your service in a way where you get the perfect fit client coming to your service, that client's going to stay longer. They're going to get better results, which again is going to attract more indirect inquiries, but also you're going to create more impact with that person who is going to talk more. And that's going to get better word of mouth and you're going to get better referral potential off that person. So let's get straight into it. The first thing you need to understand is, what are you going to talk about? This is an analogy I call the solar system, because it really articulately demonstrates how to find your remit in the market. This is basically essentially niching down. And a lot of coaches, they focus on demographic, which is an entirely wrong thing to do. You need to understand what your role is in the industry. And if you could think of the industry as a solar system, it gives you a better concept of where you can sit. Because as you go from the outside in, the knowledge base increases, the level of investment people have in their own journey increases. So someone on the outskirts, where we look at Pluto, they probably look at Ainsley Harriott and they think that guy is a wizard. He has got a healthy cookbook, healthy, and that's going to be what they need to make them lose weight. You know, that's what they need. I should stick to butter, not margarine. They have no clue about, calorie density. They have no knowledge. They're not stupid people. You don't underestimate their intelligence, but you don't overestimate their knowledge. So they're not probably signed up to a gym. They're not doing active weight training. They're at the very verge of their fitness journey. So that's the outskirts. Conversely, in the middle, you've got bodybuilders who are taking cutting-edge PED protocols. Hell, they're writing the protocols. Or, they could be judging Olympia. That's the head judge of Olympia who is looking at a physique and going, that's the best physique on the planet. So there's a huge gulf between those two. But as you go in from the outside to the center where the sun is, you're going to get people who are more invested, more willing to spend, who are a lot more aware. The second orbit range could be Joe Wicks, people who are looking at that as a solution. And as they go through and they improve their understanding, they start to become more educated, and typically their investment increases. This is why you get someone who's never stepped inside a gym before, who is not willing to spend money in fitness, because they're not seeing the benefit yet. They don't have the habits, they don't have the dopamine hit response, so they're not getting a good feeling, or they're not getting value out of their own fitness yet, so they're not prepared to give up the life they have to become who they want. But in time, they might do, the more they're exposed. So what you have to do right now is understand what is your orbit range. Where are you meeting people and where are you taking them to? And if you can imagine you've got a 2-year ideal journey with a client, where do you meet them and where do you take them to? So you can map that out in your head, you can write it down. It's called the problem path. It's a really good tool for you guys to use to articulate what you're bloody well bring into the market. Because believe it or not, a lot of coaches talk about vague topics and wonder why no one's interested. It's because no one cares about topics anymore. They care about the personal story and the personal journey. That's what they get invested in. How do you forecast that if you don't know a framework of that journey, or you don't have some understanding or awareness of what the journey even is? So you've got to look at that 2-year outcome, and then you think, where is the start of that? What education level? What are people looking at? What are they researching? What people do they look at before they come to you? That gives you a really good indication of the problems that they're thinking of, because your content, it should not be around topics. It should be around the problems that your target market is actively thinking on, or your orbit range specifically is actively thinking on, because it's what they think, it's not what you think is important. Because once you understand what they're thinking about, or you understand what they're focusing on, covering topics around that is naturally going to garner more attention from the right people. It's a perfect isolator. You get to that precision and specificity on focusing on certain problems, being consistent with those problems, and continually referencing those. And then once you have the problems and you have the thoughts, that's when you can really break down the reality, because essentially you've got 3 things. You've got thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. And it normally works in that order, because when you look at what problems they're facing, what they're fixating on, you can understand the thought process behind that. Ask your clients if you don't. Best way to do this. But even if you just pick one client who's like that ideal 2-year journey you've had, what are they thinking about at the beginning of the journey? What do they focus on? And then what thoughts would that then lead them to? And then what decisions would they then take off the back of those thoughts? What actions would they take? What would their behavior look like? How would that manifest in reality in the day-to-day? Once you have that, then you can think, okay, how would that actually make them feel? If they're not seeing progress off the back of those actions, what would they then start to feel, and how would they internalize it? And it is, we are pretty repetitive human beings. It's something we think, something we then do, something that makes us feel a certain way, and that influences what we do next, which we're going to go on to very shortly. So having a really good understanding of your orbit range can massively improve your stickiness in a market, if that's even a word. But it makes you a market. That alone can make you a market of one, because it gives you the precision of understanding someone's reality. And then you need to label this, or you need to be able to label this, the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. And you also need to understand exactly what their day looks like. Because if you can look at their journey, if you know what time they wake up, if you know what they have for breakfast, if you know what they're looking at, if you know what YouTube channels they're listening to, if you know what they're driving past, if you know all the different temptations on their route, if you know where they go to work, what do they do, how active are they, what they browse, what do they do, when do they have their coffee break, do they eat, do they have biscuits, is Janice always offering some cake out because it's always someone's damn birthday? You've got to understand the information going into this person's life. And the best way to do this is just ask, audit one person. You don't, obviously that one person is going to be different from everyone else's reality, but the key is the precision here, because you don't need to hit every single time. But when you do get precise on this, it feels real, it feels raw. And then you can do this in a carousel post where people can see it. So understand where you fit. Where do you best operate in? Where can you take someone from A to B? Once you got that, really audit A. Understand A with a fine lens, and then go through it. And that's what you're going to be talking about. I'm not going to cover the specifics of the tactics and the formats of the different content, because that will come and go. But this is fundamental. Once you understand the fundamentals, you're future-proof for life. And this is key behind one of my clients, Lloyd's success. He went from 6 clients to 105 clients. And a lot of it comes down to content, because he hasn't sent a single outbound DM in 3 years. It's all inbound. So once you leverage that understanding and you speak it to them, you show off your other clients succeeding. And again, when you show off client successes, you're not talking about point A, you're talking about point B. You're talking about the outcome that they want. It works two ways. You can read their reality at the beginning of how they're feeling at the start, but also forecast the reality of what they want. And that's the contrast between where they are right now and getting that resonance and attention and understanding, and then showing where they want to be, and then highlighting that journey, highlighting that trajectory, because it creates that polar output where they're constantly reminded of what they want, they're resonating with how they feel, and without you explaining too much of how, it's wow content, not how content. Someone said it to me ages ago, really annoyed me because I had no clue what it meant, but the wow is basically highlighting where they're going to get to, and then you just got to remove the how, because that relieves the tension, and then they go, well, there's no need to do anything about it. The how is actually your service. That's where you can talk about elements of what you do and fill in some of the gaps when you're kind of talking about the client stories and going through those carousel posts. You can reference that. So understand who you serve to such a fine degree to become the key person of influence, or that key person that understands them the most. They will come to you if they understand. Jessica's a really good example of this. I don't think she had a lead in 6 months, and then 3 weeks into starting working with me, she gets an inquiry. The thing that we put on the inquiry form, we put question number 6, I think it is. Why do you want to work with me specifically? I feel like you know me. Your content speaks directly to me, and I feel like you can best help. You could not write a better answer to a question which confirms content strategy is on point. So people do watch, they condition, they kind of observe over time. And then you only start to know this when it starts to come through. But if I can give you the faith in that it works, that would be enough for you to kind of really focus in on depth. I was going to title this video accuracy of messaging, but that's not fun, is it? But it is accuracy. It's precision accuracy of messaging. Now, number 2, let's get into that. So this illustrates different personality types. Most people have no understanding about influence, because believe it or not, different personality types are influenced by different things. And I guarantee you this, you can do loads of quizzes and tests. There's a DISC method. There is the color method, where it's very popular right now, Surrounded by Idiots, very popular book. There's also this suit one. I think it's Myers-Briggs, where you get IGF-1, IGF-2. There's 4 of each. So this is actually broken down to 16, but I can't be asked to talk about the 16. We're just going to cover the 4 main ones. We're not going to go too far into it to make you lost about it. But in essence, different personalities want different things. You will only speak in your own personality if you're not aware of this, which means you're only attracting 25% of the market. There is another 75% of the market out there, which you have a huge opportunity to reach towards. That sounds slightly dodgy, but we're going to roll with it. It's going to be absolutely fine. So, spades, on this side of the graph, you've got people who are extroverted. You've got people who are introverted on this side. At the top, these people are pretty self-reliant. They make their own decisions. These people probably include other people in the decision-making process. So that's the kind of tropes and archetypes. But on the top right, spades, these people, above all else, they want to win. They're competitive. They want speed. They want to be first. They want to beat people. They're ruthless, and they just care about succeeding and their own personal goal. And they're pretty selfish in all regard, but they want to win above all else. They're very, very, very focused. So these people do not care too much about validation. They're going to come off an offer and like a strong guarantee, and they're going to respond to conviction in your tone. So understanding how to influence those and making sure that they're going to be looked up to, beat competition, get ahead of the game, but also appeal to the ego, these people will kind of come through. The clubs, these guys, it's not so much about winning, but it's about basically being right the whole time. They care about being correct. So they're slow to make decisions. These guys are fast to make decisions. By the way, extrovert, introvert, fast decision making, slow decision making. These guys, they want to be informed. These guys need validation. These need the FAQs, and they're going to tell you you're missing a fifth FAQ because you could say this. What about this? What about that? Endless questions. But once they pass that action threshold of decision making, they stay, and they typically refer. So these people, they need proof and proof and proof and proof again, and they just need to be in the right group. So you could also use social pressure here, because if it looks like other people who they look up to, or other people are making the move and other people are taking up on themselves to sign up, they want to be part of that group who are doing that, because there's that evidence that they're, and if they feel like they're in the right, or they feel like the most informed, they will sign up based on that. Underneath the diamonds, these guys, they just do it for the enjoyment of the process. And it's a bit more personal development. They don't care about winning. They're not overly competitive, but what are they going to gain? Is it going to be fun? What's the experience? And also, are they unique? They really, really value standing out, being unique. So the best way to appeal to the diamond is showing carousel story posts, showing what's going on inside of service, doing things on stories, tagging clients, and then showing what people are going through, and more so what people are becoming, because that will really resonate with them. Massive, massive FOMO with diamonds if they look like other people are making headway and they're getting ahead. And if they don't feel great, and they're looking at other people, they'll live vicariously through those other people. So again, it's that FOMO and fear of comparison, which is going to be strong with these guys. And hearts, these guys, it's more support. Right hand angle. Love that. Jesus Christ, John. They really value feeling like you got their back. They're really empathetic people, incredibly loyal, but they need probably support, confidence in them, a little bit less belief in themselves. But once you give them that feeling like you are a coach, you have their back, and they will lean on you. And they also really, really value community. So these are the people who are going to interconnect. And once they're in a group chat, they're going to be a bit more talkative. They're going to kind of proactively engage. And they're going to really enjoy the fact of going it through other people and meeting people on the inside. But again, they will never ever respond to winning. They really don't care. They're not overly competitive, but what they will care about is understanding who you are. So again, if we know more about you in the personal branding of your content, we show more of your story, and we show it in carousel posts, and they get to know you, these guys are going to be incredibly loyal, but they'll also refer as well. Typically, you get these guys referring a little bit more than these guys. But again, it is dependent on the person. These are tropes. You'll obviously have distinction in who you are, and there'll be a ratio of what you are, but you will be dominant in one of these four. And there's also 4 within each of these. Like I said, there's 16 with the Myers-Briggs method. So you just got to be aware of we're covering the basics here, but understand different personalities are influenced in different ways. So if you are looking at your content strategy and you're kind of auditing it now, you'll start to notice you're probably focusing on things that are most resonate with you. or subconsciously when you're writing copy or when you're writing stuff in stories and you are talking about your clients succeeding, you're probably focusing in, and you can even audit your clients and see which of these are they more likely. And again, this is the difference between you sending a voice note to someone, or I say voice note, no, this is the difference between you sending a text and you reading it one way and them reading it an entirely different way. And ironically, what you'll find is relationships, they typically attract the others, because this person will naturally see the benefits of this person because they're missing those things. They're so easy for a heart to spot the positive attributes in a spade. It's so easy for a spot a club, the positive attributes in a diamond, and vice versa. So you'll find that relationships, they do have a bit of that dynamic. My previous business, I'm a heart personality type by nature, and I naturally kind of look up to spades a lot because I see elements in them which I don't have in myself. And I look at that and I go, wow. So that impresses me, and that's the first thing I notice. And when I look at my dad's a diamond and my mum's a club, and my partner is a bit of a mix of a spade and a diamond. So it is very interesting. And I know one of my clients, he's a mix between these two, and he's audited his relationships, and they do sit around here and here. And then some of his clients, that when he starts to kind of put content out there, he does attract the bottom two. So again, it is interesting when you dig into this. But the key thing, or the reason why I'm sharing this with you, is when you audit it and you understand this, you can put that into your content so you can start to appeal more of the market. When you structure a landing page, the first headline should appear to who? Spades, because they care about speed, winning above all else. So that's where you kind of focus a little bit more on promise, or a little bit what they're going to get. So the first headline should appeal to those. You should get a second headline for those. The third headline should be those, as well as the seventh and eighth and ninth and 10th. And then these guys can fit on the fourth headline. And again, FAQ is really important for these guys. These guys seeing a video on your landing page, or video about that, seeing elements of the service. These guys showing clients, showing like community, or showing elements of outside of what you do in terms of the physical result is really important. But again, structuring this and incorporating in, you'll understand that you can influence and read people more effectively. And when you understand and read people more effectively, not only in content, you're going to attract more people, but also you're going to be able to read that person's analysis of the text. And by the way, I'll probably just stick to voice notes because they hear the tonality. It makes way more sense to them. And it's harder for someone to misread it if it's a voice note because they hear the tone. Whereas so many mistakes have been made by sending a text without auditing how it might be perceived according to the other three types, because I guarantee you'll only see it in one way. But even like a joke text with the best will intent can be taken pretty badly. And these are real life examples. And I know the coach is fantastic at what they do. They're incredible at getting results. But again, it's just understanding the personality types and how they misread some of the meaning in the text. And you never know it until they ghost you, or they never know it until they get upset. And again, they're not going to communicate that because most people don't have the confidence to communicate that. So you're never going to find out about it until it's the last minute. And that's the difference between having great retention for 12 months versus having retention for like 3 to 6 months. And yeah, it's mental. When you look at it, one of my clients, we added 100 grand into their business just by increasing client lifetime. Nothing to do with getting new clients. We got obviously additional income from getting new clients, but we earned an extra 100,000 just by increasing the lifetime of his client base from 2.8 months all the way to 7.2. And that took obviously a good sort of 18 months to kind of go over and test and go through. Whoops. And that took a good 18 months to kind of instill and learn and improve our communication skills and understanding this. But yeah, understanding this can be 100 grand difference, literally. And then lastly, we're going to go on to the ladder of influence. So this is worth covering. Again, this is not a tactic you can implement straight away, but it is a fundamental understanding which can shape how you engage with people forever. Because most people are taking actions for a reason. Believe it or not, clients who don't do the work, they might not necessarily be lazy. They might not do the work because of a belief system which is in the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to work from the bottom to the very top, because this is a little bit, it might seem abstract on a YouTube video, depending on whatever time you watch this. But again, it's what actually happens, because look, we have 5 senses, right? And out of those 5 senses, we see information. Now, what's the information we take in with those 5 senses? That's not actually reality. There is so many other things going on in life that we can't perceive. Scientists reckon there's 11 dimensions. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on beyond our comprehension that we can actually take in. But even when we look at the five senses, we are just looking and analyzing and searching and taking in information, most often subconsciously, without our own direct control. So the information is out there, is present, and then what we witness becomes our subjective reality. It is not reality. Reality technically doesn't exist because it's different for everyone. But the information that's available starts to form our own version of reality, and it's a subjective reality according to the person. And out of that information and like looking at that version of reality, we make observations. We then start to look and view the world in our own way. And out of those observations, we can draw conclusions based on what we've seen. And then when we draw conclusions, that starts to form our belief structure. Because conclusions plus time and repetition, that starts to sediment and increase beliefs. Because simple things like if you step off a stair, you're going to know that you're going to step down. That's a belief system based on gravity existing. So you know for a fact the next step, you're more likely to go down rather than up. But again, it's the compounding effect of all these little conclusions from what's going on in life that we start to kind of form beliefs. And the beliefs directly implement our decision making because we act in accordance to our beliefs. And that's where the actions happen. Most people do not take action if it goes against their belief. This is why it's important to recognize what's going on in your clients' heads, because there's a reason why they're not taking action. Because believe it or not, if they've been on a call with you for 30 minutes, great. 30 minutes, they're excited, they've seen some evidence that you can get them a result, but they're still carrying 20 years plus maybe of stigma and preconceived beliefs that it won't work for them. And that's hard to shift. So it's paying attention to why they might not be taking action. And again, you can put this not just in the back end of service, but into your content when you're talking about this, because this can be penny drop moments, which are so significant to people. And when they look at it, they go, wow, never thought about it like that. That makes tremendous sense. This person, I need to be more aware of what's going on. It could be enough to make them go from they're looking, actively researching, problem aware, no need to make a change, to, okay, do you know what, I probably am going to go with you when the time is right. That could be enough to move them up the funnel. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because someone's reality is dependent purely on their beliefs. So this directly influences their reality, because what you'll find is the observations stem from beliefs. So these kind of interchange. So it's called confirmation bias as well. I mean, they will objectively observe what they believe in. They will actively look for the information which concludes their beliefs. And this is subconscious. You know, you might experience the fact that you might not be interested in a Mini or a yellow Mini. And the fact that if I said yellow Mini, next time you're going to go out driving, you're probably going to notice more yellow Minis. It's because you have the awareness of it, and then subconsciously you'll seek it. And this is a vicious cycle, because people get stuck at this stage because beliefs control all actions, and people do not act against their beliefs, but their beliefs are like a self-perpetuating cycle between beliefs, attitudes, and also observations. And that directly influences their version of reality, because again, information is abundant, and it's purely subjective, because information exists without context. I know this is abstract, but there's so much going on out there. It only has meaning when we look at it with our own observations, and that becomes our subjective reality. But again, that's rigid and regimented by the beliefs. So this is really important for understanding base psychology and why people might not be taking action and why they will be taking action. And the more you understand about this, and the more you can break into this by questioning people's belief structure on the inside of service, but also in content, you're going to get more people willing to take a change and make movement. Because all sales is, and all it takes for people to kind of sign up, is changing their perspective. And the key to changing perspective is targeting the belief stage. It's challenging the beliefs, which is going to enable that perspective shift. And sometimes it's using logic to break down if an alternative belief is possible, if an alternative viewpoint is possible, breaking down an element of their reality by, again, binary logical thinking, showing other people succeeding, drawing on their initial beliefs and how you break that down, referencing it with precision as well. This will obviously improve your ability to help people by improving adherence and getting them to change, because I guarantee you this, your clients aren't thinking about it, but it's happening. It's governing their lives. Not only is it going to help improve better results, which can attract more indirect inquiries, it's also going to make your content more magnetic. And this is why it's not really about the trends or tactics, it's about the deeper meaning and messaging that you put into content and the understanding that you can demonstrate to the people who most need it. And if you're consistent in incorporating these three strategies into content, obviously back end of service, and you do it for long enough, people will start to notice. People will start to kind of come through off the back of them changing their perspective due to something you've said. And, you know, on Tuesday, you might have said something, you might have challenged someone's belief and it might attract Neville. On Thursday, it might be completely different, it might attract Harry. You really don't know until you know. But gaining the clarity on what to talk about, understanding how to actually influence people, and breaking down belief structures, these are incredible strategies, tools, or just fundamental understanding that you can incorporate into your business to create more impact and help more people at a greater scale. But that's it for this video. If you found it helpful in any way, I cover all of this and more inside my community. I'm currently running a free trial. You can find the link below. My sole purpose is to improve coaches' ability to understand their clients more, to not only attract more of the right people, but also to better serve them inside of service.